Today we are going to discuss a very hot topic, that is the global warming with reference to the environmental chemistry. Here are regional effects of global warming. Regional effects of global warming are long-term significant changes in the expected pattern of average weather of a specific region due to global warming. The world average temperature is rising due to greenhouse effects caused by increasing levels of greenhouse gases, especially carbon dioxide. When the global temperature changes, the changes in climate are not expected to be uniform across the earth. In particular, land areas change more quickly than ocean, and northern high latitude change more quickly than the tropics, and the margins of biome region change faster than do their course. Regional effects of global warming vary in nature. Some are the results of a generalized global change, such as rising temperature resulting in local effects such as melting ice. In other cases, a change may be related to a change in a particular ocean current or weather system. In such cases, the regional effect may be disproportionate and will not necessarily follow the global trend. The increasing temperature from greenhouse gases have been causing sea levels to rise for many years. There are three major ways in which global warming will make changes to regional climate: melting or forming ice, changing the hydrological cycle, and changing currents in the ocean and air flows in the atmosphere. The cause can also be considered a region and will suffer severe impacts of sea level rise. Impacts on Asia. Glaciers in Asia are melting at a faster rate than ever documented in historical records. Melting glaciers increase the risk of flooding and rock avalanches from destabilized slopes. Climate change is projected to decrease freshwater availability in Central, South, East, and Southeast Asia, particularly in large river basins. With population growth and increasing demand from higher standards of living, this decrease could adversely affect more than 1 billion people by the year 2050. Increased flooding from the sea and in some cases from rivers threatens coastal areas, especially heavily populated delta region in Southeast and Southeast Asia. By the mid-21st century, crop yields could increase up to 20% in East and Southeast Asia. In the same period, yields could decrease up to 30% in Central and South Asia. Sickness and death due to diarrheal disease are projected to increase in East, South and Southeast Asia due to projected changes in the hydrological cycle associated with climate change. Agricultural demand from China's crop lead to land degradation and land modification, which in turn leads to increased greenhouse gas emission. Human community. The effects of climate change in combination with the sustained increase in greenhouse gas emission have led scientists to characterize it as a climate emergency. Some climate researchers and activists have called it an existential threat to civilization. The vulnerability and exposure of humans to climate change varies from one economic sector to another and will have different impacts in different countries. Wealthy industrialized countries, which have emitted the most carbon dioxide, have more resources and so are least vulnerable to global warming. Economic sectors that are likely to be affected include agriculture, human health, fisheries, forestry, energy, insurance, financial services, tourism, and recreation. The quality and quantity of fresh water will likely be affected almost every year. Some people may be particularly at risk for climate change, such as the poor, young children, and the elderly. Food security. Climate change will impact agriculture, food production around the world due to the effects of elevated carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, higher temperature, altered precipitation, and transpiration. Increased frequency of extreme events and modified wheat, pest and pathogen pressures. Climate change is projected to negatively affect all four pillars of food security. Not only how much food is available, but also how easy food is to assess, food quality, and how stable the food system is. As of 2019, negative impacts have been observed for some crops in low latitudes, that is the maize and for wheat, while positive impacts of climate change have been observed in some crops in high latitudes, that is the maize, wheat, and sugar beet. Other aspects of food security. Climate change impacts depend strongly on projected future social and economic development. As of 2019, an estimated 831 million people are undernourished. Under a high emission scenario, RCP 6.0, cereals are projected to become 1 to 29% more expensive in 2050, depending on the socio-economic pathway, particularly affecting low-income consumers. Compared to a no climate change scenario, this would put between 1 to 181 million extra people at risk of hunger. While carbon dioxide is expected to be good for crop productivity at low temperature, it does reduce the nutritional values of crop, with, for instance, wheat having less protein and less of some minerals. Water security. A number of climate-related trends have been observed that affect water resources. These include changes in precipitation, the cryosphere, and surface water. For example, changes in river flow. Observed and projected impacts of climate change on freshwater system and their management are mainly due to changes in temperature, sea level, and precipitation variability. Changes in temperature are correlated with variability in precipitation because the water cycle is reactive to temperature. Temperature increases change precipitation pattern. Excessive precipitation leads to excessive sediment deposition, nutrient pollution, and concentration of mineral in aquifer. The rising global temperature will cause sea level rise and will extend areas of salinization of groundwater and resulting in a decrease in fresh water availability for humans and ecosystem in coastal areas. The rising sea level will push the salt gradient into freshwater deposits and will eventually pollute freshwater sources. The 2014 fifth IPCC assessment report concluded that water resources are projected to decrease in most dry subtropical regions and mid-latitudes, but increase in high latitudes. As stream flow becomes more variable, even regions with increased water resources can experience additional short-term shortage. Per degree warming, a model average of 7% of the world population is expected to have at least 20% less renewable water resource. Climate change is projected to reduce water quality before treatment. Even after conventional treatment, risk maintained. The quality reduction is a consequence of higher temperatures, more intense rainfall, droughts, and disruption of treatment facilities during floods. Droughts that stress water supply are expected to increase in southern Europe and the Mediterranean regions, Central Europe, Central and Southern North America, Central America, Northeast Brazil, and southern Africa. However, other research suggests that there has been a little change in droughts over the past 60 years. Their impacts are aggravated because of increased water demand, population growth, urban expansion, and environmental protection efforts in many areas. Droughts result in crop failure and the loss of pasture for livestock. Sea level rise. The IPCC special report on the ocean and cryosphere included that global mean sea level rose by 0.16 meters between 1901 and 2016. The rate of sea level rise since the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century has been larger than the rate during the previous 2000 years. Global sea level rise in accelerating, rising 2.5 times faster between 2006 and 2016 than it did during the 20th century. Two main factors contribute to the rise. The first is the thermal expansion, and ocean water warms, it expands. The second is the melting of land-based ice in glaciers and ice sheets due to global warming. Ocean heat uptake. Oceans have taken up over 90% of the excess heat accumulated on Earth due to global warming. The warming rate varies with depth. At the depth of 1,000 meters, the warming occurs at a rate of almost 0.4 degrees Celsius per century. And this is the data between the years 1981 to 2019. Whereas the warming rate at 2 kilometer depth is only half, as well as having effects on ecosystem, for example by melting sea ice affecting algae that grow on its underside. Warming reduces the ocean's ability to absorb carbon dioxide. It is likely that the oceans warmer faster between 1993 to 2017 compared to the period started in 1969. Prior to 2007, thermal expansions were the largest component in these projections, contributing 70 to 75% of sea level rise. As the impact of global warming has accelerated, melting of glaciers and ice sheet has become the main contributor. Oxygen depletion. Warmer water cannot contain as much oxygen as cold water, so heating is expected to lead to less oxygen in the ocean. Other processes also play a role, that is the stratification may lead to increases in respiration rate of organic matter, further decreasing oxygen content. The ocean has already lost oxygen throughout the entire water column, and oxygen minimum zones are expanding worldwide. This has adverse consequences for ocean life. Effects of global warming on human health due to civilization of industrialization. Humans are exposed to climate change through changing weather pattern, that is the change in temperature, precipitation, sea level rise, and more frequent extreme events, and indirectly through changes in water, air, food quality, and change in ecosystem, agriculture, industry, settlement, and the economy. Air pollution, wildfires, and heat waves caused by global warming have significantly affected human health, and in 2007 the World Health Organization estimated 150,000 people were being killed by climate change related issues every year. Effects of global warming on human health. Humans are exposed to climate change through changing weather pattern. For example, by changing temperature, precipitation, sea level rise, and more frequent extreme events, and indirectly through changes in water, air, and food quality, and changes in ecosystem, agriculture, industry, and settlements, and the economy. Air pollution, wildfires, and the heat waves caused by global warming has a significantly affect human health, and in 2007 the World Health Organization estimated 150,000 people were being killed by climate change related issues every year. The report further assumed continued progress in health and growth. Even so, climate change was projected to cause an additional 250,000 additional deaths per year between 2030 and 2050. Eco-anxiety. Eco-anxiety or climate anxiety has been described by the American Psychological Association in 2017. They defined eco-anxiety as a chronic fear of environmental doom. Some other researchers suggest the term climate distress instead of climate anxiety. Other terms include eco-fear, which recognizes the distress to be a genuine and realistic response to a serious crisis. Eco-psychologist Zaiva Woodbury preferred the term eco-trauma. Another term is eco-despair. In 2005, philosopher Glenn Albert coined the term solastalgia, which describes a kind of homesickness for the environment the way it used to be. Psychoterapeutic is another term developed by Galen to cover various forms of earth-related mental issues. Psychiatrist David uses other terms such as eco-paralysis or climate grief, which could be considered psychotherapeutic syndromes. In 2018, the American Psychological Association issued a report about the impact of climate change on mental health. It said that gradual, long-term changes in climate can also surface a number of different emotions, including fear, anger, feeling of powerlessness, or exhaustion. Generally, this is likely to have the greatest impact on young people. A 2018 study found that unusual hot days have profound effect on mental health and that global warming could contribute to approximately 26,000 more suicides in the United States by 2050. Global warming and ecosystems. Significant disruption of ecosystems are projected to increase with future climate change. Examples of disruption include disturbance such as fire, droughts, pest infestation, invasion of species, storm, and coral bleaching events. The stresses caused by the climate change added to other stresses on the ecological system. For example, land conversion, land degradation, harvesting, and pollution. Threatened substantial damage to or complete loss of some unique ecosystem and extinction of some critically endangered species. Key interactions between the species with ecosystem and often disrupted because species from one location do not move to other colder habitat at the same rate, giving rise to rapid change in the functioning of the ecosystem. Terrestrial and wetland system. Climate change has been estimated to be a major driver of biodiversity loss in cold conifer forest, savannahs, Mediterranean climate system, tropical forest, and the Antarctic tundra. In other ecosystems, land use change may be a stronger driver of biodiversity loss, at least in the near term. Beyond the year 2050, climate change may be the major driver for biodiversity loss globally. Climate change interacts with other pressures such as habitat modification, pollution, and invasive species. Ocean ecosystems. Warm water coral reefs are very sensitive to global warming and ocean acidification. Coral reefs provide a habitat for thousands of species and ecosystem services such as coastal protection and food. The resilience of reefs can be improved by curbing local pollution and overfishing, but most warm water coral reefs will disappear even if warming is kept to 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature. Mangroves and seagrass are considered to be at moderate risk for lower levels of global warming, according to the literature assessment in special report on the ocean and cryosphere in a changing climate. Stable changes and global warming. Self-reinforcing feedbacks amplify and accelerate climate change. The climate system exhibits threshold behavior or tipping points when these feedbacks lead part of the Earth's system into a new state, such as the runaway loss of ice sheet or the destruction of too many forests. Tipping points are studied using data from Earth's distant past and by physical modeling. This is already moderate risk of global tipping point at 1 degree Celsius temperature above pre-industrial temperature, and that risk become high at 2.5 degrees Celsius temperature. Stable changes and global warming. Self-reinforcing feedbacks amplify and accelerate climate change. The climate system exhibits threshold behavior or tipping points when these feedbacks lead part of the Earth's system into a new state, such as the runaway loss of ice sheet or the destruction of too many forests. Tipping points are studied using data from Earth's distant past and by physical modeling. This is already moderate risk of global tipping point at 1 degree Celsius temperature above pre-industrial temperature, and that risk become high at 2.5 degrees Celsius temperature. Tipping points are perhaps the most dangerous aspect of the future climate change, leading to irreversible impact on society. Many tipping points are interlinked so that triggering one may lead to cascade of effects. At 2018 studies states that 45% of the environmental problems, including those caused by climate change, are interconnected and make the risk of a domino effect bigger. Check your tires. Keeping your tires inflated properly can improve your gas mileage by more than 3%. Every gallon of gasoline saved keep 20 pounds of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Number 5 is use less hot water. It takes a lot of energy to heat water. Use less hot water by taking shorter and cooler shower and washing your clothes in cold or warm instead of hot water, which means more than 500 pounds of carbon dioxide saved per year. Number 6, avoid products with a lot of packing. By doing so, you can save 1200 pounds of carbon dioxide if you reduce your garbage by 10%. Number 7, adjust your thermostat. Moving your thermostat down just 2 degrees in winter and up 2 degrees in summer could save about 2000 pounds of carbon dioxide a year. Now, the 8th point is plant a tree. A single tree will absorb 1 ton of carbon dioxide over its lifetime.